Welcome back to the lab. It's Monday morning. Progress over the weekend was zero. I did nothing. I cleaned the workshop up a little bit. It won't look a lot different to you, but heaps more room in here for me. Putting the air conditioning back in the Z, and we've got this new evaporator that needs to go into the car. So basically, air conditioning system, I know, we'll talk about this. Air conditioning system works something along the lines of, we'll start at the pump, shall we? We pressurise some gas. Gets hotter, gets more energy. All the atoms are bouncing around closer and faster and they make more heat energy, right? So you want to get rid of that. So you put it through this big condenser, i.e. radiator / intercooler, you could call it that. Cooling device. Cools it all down, keeps it nice and dense, but chilled and at high pressure. It goes through a dryer, which I'm not going to show you, it's over the other side there. It's got some stuff and things in it, which makes sure there's no moisture in there. It goes along a high pressure line, which we need to make, or get another one, along the front here, and heads off towards the firewall via this line here. You've got a little port in here, there's a little bit of glass to see what's going on inside. This still needs a bit of fiddling to make it fit. And then it goes into the evaporator, which is this bit here. So as you allow the gas to depressurize by going through these valves, TX valve it's called in there somewhere, and it depressurizes, so then it cools down lots and it takes heat energy out of the air that's going through this radiator. And then once it's done that, it goes through the larger line, which is this one here, back to the compressor, and it keeps doing that, and that's how you get your cold air. This side, not looking too bad. That's the side, the air comes from the other side, right? Goes through this way. This other side, as you can see, this is why you don't park your cars under trees. So I'm not putting that in. That's getting a big clean up. I had that in mind from a long time ago. Took these little clips, which are all a bit rusty actually. Well, not all of them are rusty, but some of them are quite rusty. Actually, that's got a little hole in the side of it, hasn't it? We've got another one of these boxes anyway, the original one to the car that had that particular piece taken out of it. So it may be that this particular piece doesn't get used and we use the original one to the car and put this in it. So I'll give that a big clean up. There's a million different ways to do that, but basically I'm just going to start with a hose and then compressed air, and then degreaser should do the rest of it. So we'll get that done and get that reassembled one or the other, and we'll put that back in the car, and then we'll carry on figuring out how we're going to make these lines work with all the aftermarket plumbing that we've got in the car for the turbo system. Ready to clean it. I can't imagine this was flowing terribly well. Basically, that part there is completely blocked. And this bit here is partially blocked. That bit there is completely blocked. Most of the way up the side there. Yeah. It'll go a lot better when it's clean. Work a lot better, flow a lot better. As far as cold air into the organic control device behind the steering wheel, should be much better. I hope that's the most disgusting job I have to do today. I gave these a bit of a clean while I was at it. These are the bits that poke out into the engine bay that you'll sort of see depending how hard you want to look in the engine bay. That side looks great. It did anyway before I started. And that side there is never going to be a thing of beauty, but it's significantly cleaner. Oh look, if we get the camera in the right spot, you can actually see the light coming through from the other side, right in the middle of your screen there. So we're pretty good. Look at that. You can see daylight through there now. You couldn't before in most places. Some places right in the middle you could, but so that's not bad. That's certainly a heck of a lot better. It'll never be like brand new. I'd hate to think what that was going to smell like if we just fired that up as it was. Eesh. Anyway, I'm going to put that in the car now. That gets that off the bench out of the way. we're not going to gas anything up, so it's not going to be fitted permanently. It's going to be in maybe one bolt on the bottom here just to hold it in the right spot so we can suss out what we're doing with these lines. It may need to come back out of the way to do something with the wiring harness, so we'll just temporarily fit that for now. I lied. That's permanently in there, the evaporator. By permanently, I mean it's fully installed. If it has to come back out, that's just the way it goes. It is well past lunchtime, so I'll be doing that in a second, but these have been blowed out, ready to go. Hopefully that gets us as far as the fitting that's down here that's got nothing on it. That one in the middle of your screen right there. And to about here somewhere, down under here, and we have to come across the front to the dryer. So I've got that, which is scavenged from a wrecked car. We may be able to use this section here just on the end. That section there is the male section. We need another female to go onto the dryer. I think there might be some kicking around somewhere over there on the shelves. So getting there, nearly about 6 months worth of work, and we'll have the air conditioning going. I joke. But the irony is this is the second car from this same project, right? So I started with one that ended up being a yellow shell. I sold that one as a non-turbo car, and the guy that bought that wanted the air conditioning put back into that. So I put the air conditioning back into that one, and all the turbo bits from the yellow car went into here. This is the turbo motor from the yellow car that I had that was basically the same chassis. Same except it was yellow. Put all that and all these bits into this blue car, sold that, disappeared. 4 years later it comes back and I'm putting the air conditioning back into that one as well. So if I ever sell the March, I'll have to stipulate I'm not putting air conditioning in that. Funny, haha. So I got the clutch going. I think I've mentioned that earlier. The pedal was massively out of adjustment. These things are hydraulic clutch. They're basically self-adjusting. You adjust the free play on the pedal if it needs changing. Once it's set up properly, it should never need adjusting ever again. Only if you change the master cylinder or anything like that. But nah. So old mates who did all the destroying on the engine when they fitted the new clutch for the current owner, they've been in there and screwed with that as well. It did have some issues with changing gears and stuff. I didn't drive it. That was just the report from the current owner. I drove it as far as, well, about here to where that camper van is really. The white camper van in the background. It went onto my trailer and then I went from about there to here. So I drove it a grand total, I don't know, 50 or 60 meters or something like that. I certainly didn't drive it down the road. I wasn't interested in it. There were so many things wrong with it. It was just pointless. It was likely to cause damage. And as you saw, that was the case. So get the clutch all installed and bleed that up, and lo and behold, the clutch pedal is adjusted incorrectly as well. Good work. Nope. Don't get ahead of yourselves. We're not at that point just yet. So to get the air conditioning plumbing in, we need to make sure that we're going to clear all our intake plumbing for our turbochargers. Most of that stuff should be pretty much where it was before. There shouldn't be a lot that's moved very far. The clocking of the compressor housings can change this a tiny little bit in this general area here. This is the side that you would expect to have all the big problems with, because this is the side with the air conditioning plumbing. However, over on this other side here, things aren't as good as they could have been. We didn't use the, shall we call them charge pipes, boost pipes that came out of the compressor housings with the Z1 kit because of stuff and things. I used some expanding pipes that went from 2 inch to 2.5 inch on a taper, which is in theory the best way to make things flow. They didn't really fit all that well. Pretty nasty if I'm honest about it. And while we're here doing stuff and things, I figured it's about time we sorted this out. So you shouldn't really have a taper going into a parallel tube, because you can't really clamp down on it properly. You put your hose clamp on here and you tighten it up. You see the gap at the side here, and it will try and pull all this way. It won't slip off the end, it never blew off, but it's just not a nice way to do it and get a good seal. And the alignment down here probably isn't as nice as it could be, and certainly the blue silicone couplers, they got to go. We've got to put some, probably black ones is the best we can do. We won't be able to source red that's the same as that to go down in here, not locally, and shipping is a nuisance at the moment, as everyone will know. So that could do with clocking just ever so slightly. Put a bend in here. There's a reasonable length of straight from here to here in just 2-inch size, so we can chop that out, move this tapered section along and put a 2.5-inch section at the end here. And you also notice that has a bit of a kink in it as well. So over on the bench here, that's the piece that'll go on the end inside the silicone hose. That will be welded to that, probably that way around, I guess. I can't remember which way it was on the car, and it'll be cut to wherever it needs to be to get the right angle of the dangle. So we'll get on with that. We'll throw this in the bin. This has been damaged by someone at some point in time, me or them or whoever, and it's the wrong colour and it's yucky, so chuck it. It's all full of oil too, see? The compressors have been leaking, turbos have been leaking, and this silicone isn't actually oil resistant. Neither is this. None of the intake plumbing is actually oil resistant, so if you have lots of oil leaks going on over a long period of time, silicone will degrade, and then you'll have things blow out, cause problems. It's gone. Don't have to worry about that anymore. Right. Let's cut some things and weld some things. More betterer. That's not too bad of a fit. I may actually, once I've confirmed everything at that end, got everything 100% locked in, may actually put the tab that's supposed to be on here on there. We don't really need it, but let's just put it on there anyway, right? And this will all need a polish, which I haven't done yet, or we could powder coat it silver, one or the other. Polish is going to look better in my opinion. Now the end of that pipe is about there. So we do have an excess of silicone on here. It's the same deal at this end. The end of the pipe is about here. So it's quite a lot more silicone than what we need. We could trim that down. Might make things look a little bit tidier and have to take into consideration where the hose clamps end up. If we do that, you trim it down shorter and then they might foul on something and be a pain in the brain. This side here, I looked at whether this needs any adjustment. It doesn't really. I think it's probably about where it needs to be. It's as good as it'll get. I can probably sneak that other cover on there without trimming that. Actually, let's have a look at that. Yeah, it fits. It's on there, but as you can see, it does push against the side of it. We'll put 25 psi in that, it'll load that up a little bit. Probably won't go anywhere. If this end here was clocked around a little further that way, you can see we can actually get clearance there. It's just a case of trying to hold that. It's actually loading it up because it's not straight through this join. But again, same with the other side there. There is a tab that's supposed to be on here, which I've never fitted. Was never on these original tubes, so I can perhaps sort that with a tube. I'll probably end up having to move this then, because that's going to be tucked away under there. Fun times. That is the joy of 300 ZXs. One of the, I believe, one of the first cars to be fully CAD designed, computer-aided drafting. With Nissan at the time had a couple of the Crane supercomputers, which were awesome back in the day. Probably the same computing power as my phone now. Well, maybe not quite as bad as that, but yeah. So now I've got to play with some more of this air conditioning stuff, which is not fun. Not fun at all. Alrighty, went for a little hoon in the ute sound to organise our tube to go from the dryer, which is not tight obviously. Fitting up here, we need to go from there, down here in this general area somewhere, along here somewhere, up through there. Pretty dark up there, isn't it? That shows just how little space there is. Up through there, I think we'll sneak up behind this frame and then across the top of the chassis rail and join into the rest of the aircon system. Unfortunately, that tube isn't in stock. They have to bring it in from the warehouse. We're going to see that tomorrow based on that time. So there's another thing that needs to happen under here. As we moved all these things around, moved the fan, the air conditioning condenser's gone in there, the oil cooler's moved here. We need to make sure that the blow-off valves clear everything in here and don't rattle and make noises. Now the fan turns, but it's very, very close to that. I can't fit my finger in between the two, so that's not really very good at all. The angle of this can be fiddled with a little bit, I guess. That can be pushed into, there's the end of the tube. The end of the tube's there, that one's there. This can be pushed that way somewhat to try and improve things. Yeah, we moved it a bit there. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to have collisions going on. So what I might be doing is undoing all these screws here that hold this aluminium fitting onto here, cutting off the barb that's on that tube that's got that silicon on there at the moment, weld that onto there, and that shifts the blow-off valve significantly further away from the fan, which should do the trick. I may even be able to, while I'm at it, clock that around a little bit. It's quite hard to show you. Clock it around that way to get it away from the fan and make sure it doesn't hit anything up there. So we can do that. Other side, yeah, pretty much same story. Very tight in there. Might end up with the trumpet, I'm going to call it a trumpet, pointing towards the back, towards the aircon condenser, which is a better idea anyway, rather than running the risk of it potentially getting a rock in there one day. That's mint. Passenger side sorted out. Heaps of clearance from that fan blade now. This blade, it's all very dark in there, that blade there. We are miles away and it won't bounce around because it's hard mounted, so it's going to be wherever this pipe is. And we will we'll sort that out at the top end in a second. And I think I mentioned earlier on, I'm considering putting the brackets, the hard mount brackets on there that currently aren't fitted, that probably could / should be. There's actually a bolt hole just here. Ooh, bad camera work. Just there, we could put one at the bottom and one at the top. Very good. Let's attack this other one. That's those both done. Oh wait, can't see them, can we? In fact, no, you can see them. Is there? No. No, it's gone. Can't even see it in there. That's right. No, there it is. Peekaboo. Okay, that's those taken care of. Most, it should be, eh? Should be at least. Anyway, most of that is all good. As I said earlier, we've got some tube coming to finish the, from there to there. So that's good. Another thing that's never quite been right with this car is this upper radiator pipe, the inlet. That's it's one of those cases where part A will fit the car just fine and part B will fit the car just fine. But if you go to put part A and part B, then you do encounter a little bit of a problem. It's not really a massive issue. This has been trimmed. It's being butchered at the end, see? I probably need to do a tidier job of that. But we've got some things to do here anyway. So when you put that on there, like that, and that on there, like that, it's just not quite right. It's pretty good, but I think this just needs like 5 degrees more that way. It's probably a case of I can give it a cut through the weld there, tap the pipe over a little bit, and then weld it back up again with a bit more room, and it'll clear this a bit nicer. Because what we don't want is a situation where this moves somehow under boost or whatever and it starts chafing and puts a hole in our radiator hose. Bad things happen. Very bad things happen. These are notorious for overheating. When you have minor problems, that kills so many of them, it's not funny. Right there, where my finger is, about here somewhere, or down here, in this general area here, I need to machine up a boss. I need to clean the bench up. For that temperature sender, that one right there, we want to put this, I know, I could literally put an adapter and have it there, but it just, yuck. Right, so we'll do it properly. We'll put a boss in here somewhere. Anywhere in that general area. Yes, we will be able to see it, but shouldn't be too much of a problem. We need to be careful about the length of that. If we do that flush, we are going to be hitting the tubes with the end of the sensor. So we need to have that proud a little bit like that, and it'll be good. And we'll tuck this harness away under the headlights. It's trying to fall down the hole now. Should I save it? No, we'll be all right. Yeah, just thinking about how we can hide it, because you can't tuck it under anything here. We'll come around here, we'll follow the alternator harness. Somehow get it up, maybe run it through the engine somehow to get it through the hole on the other side where we'll put everything else, the hole that doesn't exist just yet. Well, that's about enough for today. Not sure if I showed you that. I did show you that, didn't I? Look at that, I'm forgetting what I've done. Tomorrow we've got something a little bit different, probably, depending on what the weather does. If it's absolutely horrid, then maybe not. There's kind of the competitor, I guess, to these things when they were out in the day. One of the alternative manufacturers that came along with something slightly similar, slightly different. If you stood way far back and squinted your eyes a lot, it looked the same. So we'll see if that turns up. I want to take that one for a drive. Right, catch you later. Cheers, bye.